Jim, what did you make of that? Apart from all the poos and wheeze metaphors, did he actually have anything to say in that column?
Well, I think he did. I was mindful of James K. Baxter said we're all obsessed with toilet training in this country, so perhaps that's Mike's problem. Yeah, I actually thought he made a point. The relationship, which was well, the relationship between the people who float in and out of the gallery and into the comms jobs with ministers, to become the PR flax for ministers, and it's a very close relationship that it's always I've always felt uneasy about. It happens very easily in this country. More easily, I think, than any other Western nation that I'm aware of.
It was dogs and urinals there, Sean. You've been referred to as the Rottweiler. What did you make of it?
Yeah, I'd never call Mike a urinal, I don't think, or indeed any item of bathware furniture. I think what he's saying is that there is a relationship so close sometimes that it is unhealthy. And I think journalists who want to operate, particularly in the political environment, need to have a mindset that they have something else to do if they were to lose their jobs tomorrow. Because if you're doing your job properly, that should always be in prospect.
It is dangerous. It's a little pond that they're all swimming in, and you know that whole the drinking, the socialising, the whole process by which they go about getting their stories that is a dangerous line.
It is interesting to note there have been a number of high-profile people. Richard Griffin, a former political editor of Television New Zealand, crosses over and works for Jim Bolger. Radio New Zealand. Another former political editor of Radio New Zealand, Al Morrison, in a couple of job moves, is suddenly running DOC, one of the biggest government departments in the country.
Jane Young was at Doug Graham, then to TV3. I mean, I think it's part of a small country. We have to accept that.
Well, Richard Long was the most disappointing one for me. I mean, he was my first chief reporter a zillion years ago, and then suddenly pops up in The Hollow Men as the sort of one of the main manipulators.
Jim, are you getting a bit precious, though, in terms of do we actually have to accept that our world we're changing roles, that is part of the whole new way
I'm going to be old school about this, and I say either you're a journalist or you're not.
Exactly.
And that is with a little bit of wiggle room for people's lives.
Sean, you've been a media trainer, though.
I have trained media in the past.
You've crossed the line.
But I wouldn't call that crossing the line. And I'd say I'm very...
What's the difference?
OK, what's the difference between being a media trainer and a spin doctor? And we're going to get into this. And the fact is that when you are media training, you can pick... If that is not your main source of income, you can pick your media train. And I've got a conflict of interest policy, which I can tell you means that I do about 5% of the work that I could do. And I do it very, very seldom.
And I have to put my hand up. I do what we loosely call training as well, and I don't like calling it media training because I'll never tell somebody what to say. I think there's a whole new approach about teaching people how to say things simply, because nobody in their right mind wants a complicated, convoluted, useless interview.
And I'd add I'd never media train a politician.
No, I wouldn't have
that's interesting.
End of story.
Sorry, guys, this is self-serving. It's about the money. We're so poorly paid as journalists in this country.
And I was going to
forced
make
to do something.
This
on
whole
the
crossover thing is that there's no career structure for people. So you do have people like Richard Long and Richard Griffin who can't at the end of very successful and august careers as journalists, can't move on to something in management, can't, if you like, earn the money or find a position that suits them later on, because what's happening is younger and cheaper journalists are constantly being hired by the news outlets to replace and push out more experienced hands.
And they've got
ethically, are you just making things harder for every other journalist in the country by teaching these people not how to answer questions?
Let's look at what media training is. And to be honest, I would rather interview someone who is media trained than not media trained.
And that was my point, that it's about getting them to speak and convey their message really simply, so that I can go back and cut it and know that, that's powerful telly. That's brilliant. And the other thing I want to say is that it's absolutely fundamental now. I think viewers have changed. They're very savvy when somebody is trying to give them an answer or a explanation that is spun. And that's the difference of the PR stuff. A PR spin is crap.
But I mean, I've heard you, Sean, waste.
Fraud isn't who a fraud isn't. And when somebody's being authentic and credible and real,
and you've heard someone bridge or say, before I answer that question, and you know that I know
and we end up with 3 minutes of you trying to bring them back to the question.
But they're not doing that because they're being media trained. They've done that because they're trying to avoid answering the question, or they're out and out lying. And the great thing is that you, as a listener, and other people can hear that. And my observation would be, if those people have been media trained or spun, they've been incredibly poorly advised.
Now, I'd actually like to have a look at an interview you did with a controversial character and an unpopular one at the time, and we can talk to you about how you did it afterwards.
And this was group sex.
Brad Shipton was there, but Brad Shipton didn't participate in sex at the same time that I was having sex with Louise Nicholas.
What is that about? It's hardly normal to have sex while one of your mates is looking on.
You know, you're right. I was in a relationship. I had 2 children. Yeah, I shouldn't have been doing it. I did do it, and I can't resolve from that.
You were a very big policeman, and so was Brad Shipton. Powerful men, a lot older than this very slight, young, vulnerable woman.
I can't help the way that I am, and I certainly can't help the way that I'm built. Let's get in perspective, it's happening every day. Other police officers have done it, politicians have done it, news media people have done it. I'm not making excuses, but everyone's done it.
Former Deputy Police Commissioner Clint Rickards in conversation there with Amanda Miller. Amanda, how long did it take you to get that interview?
That interview came about after probably nearly 3 years, 4 years of negotiating. And I mean negotiating. 80% of being a current affairs reporter is negotiating.
Were there any conditions about what you could ask?
No. I've all along. Yes, he was a very difficult person to deal with, and occasionally he'd say whatever, and I'd say Did
you go into it with the intention of taking a fairly measured approach? Why weren't you more aggressive?
Because that's
I'm not saying it was the wrong thing to do, but
because I think you might see other interviews that I do, and I think that is my style. I can ask quite aggressive questions, but it's in quite a different tone. This is a conversation, and I'm asking you that basically you're a rapist. I don't have to say, you're a rapist.
Is that a better way, if you've actually got the time for a long-form interview, is that, in your view, a better way of actually extracting the information?
Look, it's a style thing, and I think that is the way, after many years of reporting, that I've worked out is my style.
It was appropriate in that case. I don't think you need it. I mean, the question itself spoke for itself.
Well, the answers are more important, but yes, the questions are, everybody will be at home going, right, ask him this, ask him that. That's what's driving me.
We wanted to see his reaction, not
Absolutely.
your behaviour.
And I think that's the thing with some longer format current affairs, is that the reporter and their questions can get in the way of the actual story.
Well, we're actually going to have to take a break now, and we'll be back after the break with a few interviews in which people did drop the bomb.